Hi guys, I'm not Wes Streeting's biggest fan, but the policy that Labour want to roll out when they get into power, where they look after children's teeth, is a no-brainer. This should have been happening for years. Now the problem is not at all related to the policy, but instead the response to it. Both the media and the Tories have been asking questions, the former about the cost, while the latter if this is some slippery slope to the so-called nanny state. Here Streeting, who is likely to be the next Health Secretary after the election, explained the value of the policy, and the media asked their dumb questions.
Children aged between 6 and 10 are experiencing tooth decay to the extent it is the #1 reason why they're being admitted to hospital. And this is totally avoidable. I think actually that teaching kids to brush their teeth is parents' responsibility, but in too many cases that's not happening. And I think we face a choice as a country. We can either sit back and say, well, it's parents' job, and if kids' teeth rot and if they end up in hospital, that's just too bad, despite the cost to their health, their teeth, and to the NHS. Or for actually a relatively small amount of money, we can put supervised toothbrushing in for kids aged between 3 and 5 to help keep their teeth clean and out of hospital.
OK, one, you said for a small amount of money. What's the money? How much money and what will it pay for? Well,
it's £3 million for supervised toothbrushing. That's part of a broader £1.6 billion package we're committing to the NHS to cut waiting lists.
I just want to look at this £3 million. Does this £3 million pay for the time for a teacher to look at every 3 to 5-year-old's teeth and supervise their brushing?
Well, it's part of a broader programme we've got for primary school breakfast clubs. Every child in the country will be able to access primary school breakfast clubs.
This is different, no.
So that's part of the time. But I take the point you're making, but that's part of the time. Any teacher will tell you, in terms of the direct supervision, there'll be some kids who turn up who they know and can see are really confident, probably already brushed their teeth. There'll be others who need support.
The others that need support. Now, look, why is it whenever Labour introduce a policy, talk about a policy, the first question from the media is, how are you going to pay for it? How much is it going to cost and how are you going to pay for it? Now, it never happens with the Tories. Why is it the case that whenever the Tories introduce a new policy, for example, the Rwanda policy, I never heard one journalist ask the Tories, how are you going to pay for it? £400 million for Rwanda. Not one question, how are you going to pay for that? The £37 billion handed over to Dido Harding, how are you going to pay for it? I've never heard anyone ask that question. So when the Tories introduce a policy, it's, OK, let's talk about the policy. When Labour introduce a policy, first question is, how are you going to pay for it? Now, there are some interesting questions to be asked about this. Will the teachers be expected to do this in their own time? Will they be expected to do it within teaching time? Is this going to be an extra cost that is this extra money that's been given to the schools to cover this? What about schools that are already struggling with staffing problems? Is this going to hinder these teachers from operating? So there are a number of questions to be asked, but the policy itself makes a lot of sense. If you invest now in health, then you save the NHS in the long run. Because if children are not getting their teeth brushed correctly, if they're ending up with problems, they end up going to A&E. And this is a massive cost for the NHS. Now, of course, you don't want children or anyone going to A&E if they can actually be treated by their GP or their dentist. But if there aren't dentists and there aren't GPs, then people will end up in A&E because they need treatment. So prevention is very important. But it's also important that the NHS, the GPs, dentists get the resources they need. And we hope that that's going to happen. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what do you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.